Hey folks, just getting all started here and set up. So, if you are joining and wondering what's going on, this is a ton of open studio. So, people can send in tracks and get some live, kind of like mastering style pushback on your mix. And I have a good amount of tracks that people have sent in already. Mason went ahead and made a post on Reddit and got a whole bunch of new people. I really appreciate it. Whenever anybody spreads the word about this stream, it always gets a great response. And yeah, the more tracks that we have to look at, the more that we can do. So I've got a bunch of stuff, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait uh, 10 minutes. So if you're watching the replay tomorrow, because I know a lot of people are in different time zones, I'm trying to do it right in the middle of the day to try and catch as many people as possible. So uh, if you are watching uh, later, just know that at around the 10-minute mark, we're going to start going through tracks. And that's how I'm going to do it from here on out. I'm trying to develop a very regular way of doing this so that people know what's up. So 10 minutes to kind of just go over what's going to happen. I'm going to talk about some random stuff and let people get into the stream and, then we'll get into it. So I'll reiterate, this is a ton of open studio. You can send tracks to me at any time by emailing atonuvrecords@gmail.com. I load them up, take a listen, and give feedback to your mix. And this is a nightly broadcast. Going to be doing it at 6 p.m. Eastern. And if you can get into the live stream, you can always ask questions in the chat. We can have a back and forth dialogue on your mix. And do all of that. So, you know, just hanging out, waiting until 10 minutes in, then we're going to get into tracks. I've got, I think, 6 today. And if you're just joining, feel free to send an email and we'll, take a look at your track on live while you're in chat. If you've got something that is super new, super rough, or it's a secret, it's going to get released, feel free to tell me to play it muted so that the whole world doesn't hear it. I'm totally cool with that. And Gus has a question. There's a delay from chat to the video, so definitely ask your question. I will repeat what you say so that we can all kind of keep track of where we are in the conversation. So, Gus, whatever you got, I will get to it. Just waiting for Gus's question. Now, if you are just coming on board, this is a ton of open studio. We'll be here nightly at 6 p.m. Eastern. And just waiting a few minutes while people jump onto the stream. At about the 10-minute mark, we'll start getting into tracks if you're watching the replay later in the day or tomorrow. And just waiting for a question. Okay. So Gus is wondering, he just got his song mastered, and your mixes have a lot of reverb, and when it got mastered, the reverb volumes came up, or at least seemed to. Can you kind of explain how this happened? Yeah. So this is pretty normal, and there are a few explanations. So the thing about master. I mean, first off, there's an overall broad view here. A good master, should be completely and totally mix dependent. Like, mix comes in, master comes out, and the master isn't trying to do like a bunch of new crazy stuff. Like, we shouldn't be mixing with the intention of having it fixed in the master. What we want is a degree of quality assurance and like a guarantee of consistent playback across all systems and a understanding of where you fit in uh like amongst other tracks in your genre. This is what we're trying to accomplish with mastering, along with just like a very, very, very like minimal, like corrective EQ if there's a problem, and it can't be addressed in the mix for whatever reason. A degree of color that's added with like master process. You know, you have like a crazy analog chain like I've got in front of me right here to just add like this little teeny tiny, almost imperceptible bit of sheen, and then like a tiny bit of compression. Like, we're talking about like 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction. Like, we're not really compressing for compression. It's more like we want to like squeeze out some extra volume with some color, and then limiting to ensure that there aren't massive peaks. So that's all that mastering is sonically. And what we really want to do is listen in an objective environment and provide feedback and quality assurance on the mix. Like, that is good mastering. That's great mastering. So, to address your question, you've got a mix, you use a lot of reverb, it goes through the master, and it feels like there's more reverb. There's a couple of things that could be happening. So, it could be that your mix has a lot of reverb, and then when it's put through the processing and kind of carved out in a neutral, objective environment, your mastering engineer brought out a certain frequency that the reverb is living in, like probably in the upper mids, where uh, you might have been really conservative in that area, depending on your speakers in your room. Like, you might have a mixing environment where there isn't, you might be compensating, like maybe it's really hot from 3 to 5K. That's really normal in a mix room. So maybe you've been like cutting heavily in that area, and then your mastering engineer was like, this is really deficient in the upper mids. So uh they might have like boosted that a little bit, and that might be where a bunch of your reverb was hiding, and then that got brought out. That's a possibility, which would then, like, if that's the case, it's like there should be pushback on your mix to address that reverb. Like, if it's not what you want, it's not really the mastering that's bringing it out. It's that your mixing environment is masking what your reverb is doing. The other possibility is reverb is, inherent if you're using stereo reverbs. Some mastering engineers do a degree of mid-side processing where information on the sides gets brought out and brightened, or maybe compressed differently to increase the stereo image. That's occasionally what a mastering engineer will do. It's a that's like fixing a problem. Like, if there's not enough stereo depth, it's like you can, but it's not necessarily a thing that you should do or need to do on every single mix. But sometimes there's something that has deficient stereo information, so you widen the stereo image by doing mid-side processing. Reverb is inherently in the sides, so if they've done any sort of side boosting or side brightening, then that's going to make your reverb appear louder. So, like, long story short, your reverb is louder on your master, either because it was living in a frequency that is masked in your mixing environment and then got brightened by the mastering engineer, or they did mid side and boosted the sides. So, great question, seemingly simple question, super long answer. Okay? Uh okay, we got a question from Elias. Found me on Reddit. Very cool. Okay, curious if I have any preferred genres, or what genres I specialize in. I don't have a preferred genre. People send stuff in that's like, we get like folk tracks, hip hop, EDM, like a country track has come in. There's been like some psychedelic Indian rock like on the docket. It's kind of everything, and I uh from a mastering perspective, I really do everything. Uh, and that pushes back to mixing. Like I can address like technical areas in a mix. As far as what I personally like to do, um, generally a lot of my mixing projects are in the like rock, garage rock, psychedelic rock, just the to like know the language of a mix and just like push it into the right places very quickly. That's what I personally like moving the faders on, but I do a lot of like stem mastering or consultations on mixes from all genres because that's more from like a technical like you're too heavy at 300 hertz and stuff like that. So uh, I'm pretty comfortable. You know, feel free to send absolutely anything in. In short, um, yep. Dr is totally right. Using verbs on sends is definitely the way to go because you can treat it separately and clean it up and side chain it and do stereo stuff and have more control. So yeah, totally the right way to go, Dr. Um, Gus, you mentioned that uh, you have a terrible mixing environment, so feel free. I have a pretty quick, uh, relatively painless acoustic treatment methodology. Um, if you want, in chat, just kind of describe what your environment's like, what you already have, what monitors you're using, your room dimensions, and the current acoustic treatment that you have. And we can dial in, like, really quickly a diagnosis and a method of cleaning it up that is straight to the point. It's not going to be the most expensive thing in the world. It's a little bit of money, but there's a pretty decent way to treat your room without destroying your bank account. And give me 1 second. I'm simulcasting on Twitch, and I need to pop open that chat. I've got to like, figure out how to condense everything properly. All right, cool. Yeah. So Gus, just type out all your info. It's been about actually it's been longer than 10 minutes. So we're gonna get into tracks that people have sent. So I've got 5 or 6 in my inbox already. So we're gonna start with those. if someone comes on to stream and they want some live feedback and they want to send it while I'm going over other people's stuff, that's awesome too. Let's go ahead. Let's get into it. The first track we've got is Zara Zara. And let me pull up that email because this is a cool one. Okay, so Shabir has been doing like vocals over backing tracks or karaoke. They do their best with what they've got. And on this new mix, they did a full mix for the first time, like going through all the stems. So let's see how this goes. I'm really excited to take a listen. Hey, Gus, I'm sorry. That's your track. You're totally right. These went in on the wrong order. So let's keep listening. I am sorry for miscrediting you, my dude. Let's keep on listening. My bad.
Just too close for lost it. I'm just way too close for comfort with the boss man. Very often, very often, I've been just too close for comfort with the boss man. I feel lost it. I'm just way too close for comfort with the boss man. Very often.
Gus, that's an awesome track. Really, really nicely written and performed. The recording is super clean. And, uh, you know, looking at your room, it doesn't sound like you're using like a bunch of cheap stuff. This sounds really, really, really good. Like that is the baseline that we're gonna move with on this track. It sounds really good. Um, there is some nitty gritty stuff that we could get into. So it's uh it's a bit heavy on the bottom end, and it's eating up a degree of like volume and clarity that could exist all over. So sometimes we're getting stuff lost. This is also we're vaguely pushing into like compression artifacts. So uh and that's all from the low end, just kind of hitting stuff a little too hard. Like it's probably hitting the limiter a bit hard, and we're losing a bit of fidelity that could exist. It's not um it's not bad. It's we are just like pushing on the edge. So there's a degree of like separation that could happen between the kick and the bass to kind of that would be like the first thing to do, like really, really make them uh not share that big old chunk of low end, and so we get a little bit of separation there, and then just dial everything back a little bit. If we look at like what I would consider like pop um references for this, something like The Weeknd, um they're working with a pretty shockingly flat frequency response. And yours is just like we've got kind of like a classic like kind of a techno response. Like we're really, really heavy from 60 to 100 and then pretty flat after that. And I would think of this as more of that The Weeknd or uh, uh, Tame Impala kind of. So I would shoot for something a little bit flatter, and that's so just to kind of like fit in with the genre, and also it's just that limiter's getting hit a bit hard. It's also like it's trending between like -7 and -6 RMS, and that's a result of the low end hitting kind of harder than everyone else. And for like a rock vibe like this, we're really like -9 to -7 would be more of our target. But that's, I mean, it's a teeny. So all of this is to say that all of the things that I think could be like improved on this are incredibly minimal. This is a great track. Let me pop the chat back open. Cool. DR, I would prefer waves if you've got them. MP3s are doable for sure. Uh, SoundCloud links are okay, but I with the routing to get this to like stream everywhere, I can't route that back into the stream, so it'll be off stream if you send a SoundCloud link. Um, but yeah, Gus, awesome track, really really good. Uh, it would be just dialing in that low end, which is a okay. If your mastering engineer offers free revisions, which most do, it would be absolutely acceptable to ask for a little less low end. And that's like exactly the feedback that mastering engineers want. We don't want to hear like, I want more kick or I want more snare or I want more vocal. That's not what we do. But as far as asking for a different sonic frequency spectrum, that is 100% absolutely within the realm of a mastering engineer's job, especially if it's stem mastering. So, uh, yeah, I mean, if I was, this is your stuff, you know, but if I was to give a diagnosis to this, it would be like, I want pull back like 3 dB, uh, from 60 to 100, and it is like you know one of the go-to mastering moves is to bump up 60 to 100. It's what makes something sound better when you turn it back. But that said, if you all it's kind of like, don't go looking for a problem that's broken. If your mix already was there as far as where 60 to 100 should be sitting, then don't just arbitrarily boost it so that it's bigger. So I would bring that low end back, and then aim for a average loudness that is just a little less hot. Uh, that's it's gonna be hard to go from something that is hotter to less hot, because we naturally um, louder sounds better. That's why we hire somebody uh uh to make it louder. But louder isn't always better, even if it sounds better. Uh it's gonna, be ear fatiguing, or we're gonna get like pumping artifacts, or it might not translate into every single format. So we yeah, we basically just want dial that low end back, and honestly, just dialing that low end back is gonna give you that headroom, and it's gonna hit the limiter nicer. Once that's dialed in, like, you could probably just toss it through the same chain with less 60 to 100, and it's all gonna just fall into place. If you don't like that reverb stuff, then you're gonna have to ask for, like, that's probably sitting somewhere in the like 2 to 5K range. So don't bring that up. Don't bring up as much air, or don't do mid-side processing. So, but I mean, I think that it's a very nice stereo image, so I wouldn't really necessarily touch that. I think it sounds good. So, great track. Really, really love having that. And to very briefly, I think on every single stream, I eventually go through my quick acoustic fixes. So like, when you get a new place, what you're gonna want, probably upgrade your monitors to that's where the most of the money's gonna be. The I super duper recommend the Yamaha HS series. Like, grab like some HS7s, depending on the size of the room. Like HS5, HS7, HS8, depending on the size of the room. If you're doing stuff that's kind of like driving and bassy, you're gonna want to sub with those. I don't love setting up sub and speaker setups because then you have to triangulate 3 speakers to put them perfectly in your room instead of 2. But it's worth it if you need that low end. So the Yamaha HSs are reasonably priced and deliver quality results. If that is out of the budget, there's the Atom A7s. There's the cheap ones. They're like $200 each. It's the AT7, I think. That's worth looking at. But the Yamaha HS, can't go wrong with them. Uh, yeah, the Callies are comparable to like the Atom, very good. So, and definitely usable if you set up your room right. So first off, you're gonna want to get a decent monitor setup, and then dial in your room, and that's like, you know, set your speakers up on the short wall, and then your listening position is going to determine where the speakers are. You determine your listening position by measuring between 30 and 40% of the way back from the front wall. 33.3% is a pretty popular measurement to do. And then from there, you need your speakers to be in an equilateral triangle from the like back of your head. And that's how you're going to place your speakers. 9 times out of 10, your speakers are going to be closer to you than you would think. That is kind of the shortcut answer to getting that right speaker setup. And then set up your speakers, equilateral triangle. You're going to want to set up an RFZ, a reflection-free zone. You can build your own absorption out of like fabric and rock wool, or you could grab like in the cheap world of consumer acoustic paneling, the Prima Acoustic is something that is like budget friendly and delivers results. The like foam stuff, the Oralex, that's just not going to do you any good for even though it's really cheap. So stay away from that. But the Prima Acoustic stuff, you can use that to set up an RFZ. And RFZ is easy. It's just from your speakers to your ears. Treat with absorption. And that is going to move the needle the most as far as how it works for you. So RFZ, easy peasy, build it yourself or grab Prima Acoustic, and then you're gonna want to bass trap the front corners. You can build it yourself. The super chunk method is probably the easiest and quickest and cheapest way to do it. It's how it sounds. You just take big chunks of insulation and build a trap in your front corners. If you want something that's a little more boutique and nice looking, GIK makes really, really good tri-corner traps that are doable budget-wise and look really, really nice and work really, really great. And after that, speakers, triangle, room dimensions, RFZ, front corner traps, you're going to be 90% of the way there. Unless you're like in the worst room in the whole world with a lot of weird stuff going on, that is going to deliver good stuff for you. So after those front corner traps, then we're looking at like back corner traps, maybe rear wall diffusion, depending on if you want your room to be a little lively or not, and then a cloud above your head. So those are your steps to acoustic treatment. All right. So that's my acoustic treatment spiel. really cool track. Happy to take a listen. So let's get on to the next one. Let's see what I got. Okay, so here is Zara Zara by Shabir. So let's take a listen.
सभी बातें एक बार है दीवानी झूठा ही सही प्यार तो कर मैं बोला नहीं हंसी मुलाकातें बेचैन करके मुझको मुझसे यूं ना तेरे नजर रूठेगा ना मुझसे मेरे साथ आए वादा कर तेरे बिना मुश्किल है जीना मेरा मेरे दिल पर जरा जरा बहकता है महकता है आज तो मेरा तन बदन मैं प्यासा हूँ मुझे भर ले अपनी बाहों में यूं ही बरस बरस काली घटा बरसे हम यार भीग जाए इस चाहत की बारिश में तेरी खुली खुली लटों को सुलझाओ मैं अपनी उंगलियों से मैं तो हूँ इस ख्वाहिश में सर्दी की रातों में हम सोए रहे एक चादर में हम दोनों तन्हा हो ना कोई भी रहे इस घर में
Okay, Shabir, amazing. This is like your first mix ever, and really good job not doing anything like super duper wrong. Like that's amazing. So this is solid work. Um, I I don't want to overwhelm, so there's just a couple of things that I would take a look at. The most pressing thing, as far as just dialing in a more complicated concept, the compressor on your piano is weird. It's got there's just too much pumping on it. It could be the compressor on the piano itself, or maybe it's sidechained to something, but it needs to be a little bit gentler. I would raise the threshold, or really make sure that your release time is dialed in, because we're getting like a pumping artifact on that piano, and it's not really serving the track. So that's gonna open up a lot of dynamic possibilities, and I would want to just start there. Like, let's fix up that piano. Uh, I know that you're just using like a USB mic for your vocal, and it's like pretty good with what you're doing. There is a bit of like around 2K. I would want to throw like a dynamic EQ or a de-esser on that region. We just got some weird stuff that pokes out just specifically in that region. So we don't want to over-treat the vocal, but it's like that 2 to 3K range. It just needs a little bit of action to pull it back at those moments. So take a look at those two things. Weird compressor on the piano, DS the vocals a little bit, around 2K. Uh, Very cool, though. Great to hear a fresh mix. Okay, let me check chat. Okay, awesome stuff. So let's see if anything's happened in chat world. Yeah, DR. Mixing on headphones with sonar works. It totally works. If at any point in your career you get a chance to use some monitors, it does open up some cool stuff. All right, let's get into the next one. Another couple of tracks just came in. This is I have to exercise some time management here. We've got a lot of stuff to go through, so let's see what's next in the DAW. Okay. If you've sent in a track and you're live with me right now, let me know in chat real quick so that I can get to your stuff like while you're here. I'll just give this a second for the stream delay to happen. Okay, Ivxy says yo, so we're going to go ahead and we'll kind of do it in the order that you shout yourself out. So we've got Ivxy, and then we're going to do Vault. Really good to see you, Vault. And Vault has been was on the stream before I had to take a hiatus due to some internet problems. And it's been really cool working with Vault. We did email exchanges on Tighten Up a Mix, and that got signed to Smart Records, I believe. So very cool to have people doing good stuff in this community. Everyone should check that track out. It's called Drunk Survival. Okay, so here's our order. We're going to do Ivxy, Vault, Elias, and then DR. So, and then I've got a backlog of stuff from earlier in the day. So, that is the order we're going to do. Let's take a look at that next track. All right, and while I'm loading this up, we'll just go ahead and do the perfunctory stuff. So this is a ton of Open Studio. You can send stuff in for live feedback, mastering style pushback on your mix. Doing this nightly at 6 p.m. Eastern. Send stuff anytime to atonuvrecords@gmail.com. There is a Patreon in the description if you want to support the stream a little bit, get a little shout out, get some one-on-one action. That is available. And right now we're going to listen to Autumn Memoirs by Ivxy. Let's see what's happening.
I ain't open up no more. That's a path I ain't go for. Besides, they only ever listen when it's on the track spitting. All this time that be passing.
Recollect on the past tense. Who I was got me asking, did I grow or stay stagnant? Youth passed so quick, can't deal with this. Got a problem looking back, it's all gold in the past. They say friends come and go, lately they ain't even come. I'm always dissing with them anyway, really can't blame them. Eyes closed, I'm just laying low on a tightrope. These days everything be feeling like a typo. Misread every opportunity as time goes. I'm just waiting on it, tell me when's the right. Eyes closed, I'm just laying low on a tightrope. These days everything be feeling like a typo. Misread every opportunity as time goes. I'm just waiting on it, tell me when's the arrival. I ain't felt okay since 18. About things that could change me, it was anxiety daily. I'm all alone with the same thing. Bunch of burdens on my shoulders now. I'm just trying to find my own way out. Music was the only thing around, so I put my focus into work it out. A few years later, and I'm all I got. Everything inside a broken box. I've been stuck here trying to pick the lock, and I never switch up or I never stop. What's the point of this, really? Everything is unappealing. I guess you never really know, so I'ma just stay alone. Eyes closed, I'm just laying low on a tightrope. These days, everything be feeling like a typo. Misread every opportunity as time goes. I'm just waiting on it, tell me when's the right. Eyes closed, I'm just laying low on a tightrope. These days, everything be feeling like a typo. Misread every opportunity as time goes. I'm just waiting on it, tell me when's the arrival.
Really cool track. Uh I really love the vibe and what is like everything, all of the details and the everything about it is lovable. And you did production and vocals and everything. I'm reading the chat while I'm doing this. So, incredible work. I want to be a little bit picky because I love this track. So excellent low end, and like it's very pillowy down there, which I really like in a track like this. We don't have like aggressive like not that's the thing, like not every single track needs to have just like pounding thundering low end. It's become kind of a trapping of modern production, and it's always really nice to just hear like just like a nice delicate pillow down there, and I love where it's at. If there are other naughty audio nerds in the chat, um, Kush After Dark does a really, really great audio stream, and they just released one about like reference tracks, and they point out that When Doves Cry by Prince like literally has nothing under 100 hertz, and it's still one of the biggest hits of all time. So that's kind of fun, and I really like where this is sitting in the production. And I'm going to go back to chat just so we can all stay on the same page. Love this track, dude. Here is what I would think about. This is getting into some artistic choices here. The vocal is a bit buried because it doesn't have that much presence in like basically the entire mid range from 500 to 2K. It's definitely masked behind the beat, and I wouldn't necessarily want the vocal to be louder, like more on top. Don't just like push the vocal up or compress it more or whatever, because the vocal sounds really good. I would just give it a little more beef in that 500 to 2K so that it can kind of just like ride on top of the beat a bit, or cut the beat a little bit in that region. And that's kind of like the big thing that I would worry about. I think that everything sounds really nice. Now, the other question is this mastered? Like, would this be the final thing that you're putting out? Is the question. Uh, if that's the case, there's some stuff that I want to go into on dynamics. So go ahead, just let me know in the chat. But very, very cool stuff. Okay, cool. Then I would say, yeah, just what's gonna happen if you just mastered this, if you crushed this through a chain, it's gonna you're not gonna get like consistent dynamics because you've got uh your mix is a little bit overwhelmed by transients, and it's mostly because you need to flesh out that like mid range with like the vocals and stuff, and then that's gonna bring it into a more average loudness in general. Uh, I would uh, I would look into trying out rear bus compression on this too, which is not tip. That's more of a like rock and pop trick, but it would really hit the spot on this. Um, the that's gonna so look up. I also rear bus compression. I talk about it on almost every single stream. But if you just like uh, Andrew Shep's kind of, it's been used for a really long time, but Andrew Shep's really like popularized its use. So if you want to do a deep dive on rear bus, just Google Andrew Shep's rear bus, and you can watch him talk about it for like 6 hours. And he'll go into the nitty gritty, but basically, you strap a really, really hot, heavy ratio compressor, uh, and just smash your instruments and your vocals with it, and then blend that in to the entirety of your mix. And it kind of auto ducks when something is the melody and when something is important. So you get a really nice kind of like automatic automation on your mix. And it just gives everything like a little more power and a little more beef. And I would kind of like think that that might be a cool thing to do. It's a little off genre, but if you just if you hit it with that, you might get some cool results. I'm not guaranteeing it for the I'm not, you know, it's not a guarantee, but I think it's worth trying. But definitely beef up your mid range, and then we're just gonna do it's as it stands right now, it's a little too dynamic. It just needs to get squeezed. I would maybe squeeze the drums a little bit, maybe try rear bus on your vocals and instrument buses. And DR is correct. Use dual mono on your rear bus. Uh, and yeah, master that track, and then you've got something really, really great. This is a great, great track. All right, let's move on and take a listen to the Vault track. Now, this is a demo from Vault, so everyone keep that in mind. And what David's wondering is they have this demo, and then they're going to put a vocalist over it. And so that's cool. I'd love to hear it once it's done. But they're wondering, should they pre-mix before the vocal goes in, or does the mix depend on the vocal, and is it a waste of time to prepare for it? So on a like finished product level, yeah, it is a bit of a waste of time. Like, your mix is going to be, if you want the vocal to be featured in the mix, if you want it to be like super forward pop style, like your entire mix needs to basically collapse around the vocal. So to a degree, you're going to be chasing your tail if you're trying to guess what's going to happen. Now, that said, what you might want to do is prepare to go into like producer mode instead of like mixing mode. You want your singer to deliver a great performance. So they need to feel like they are on top of the mix while they're tracking. So, uh, you know, in like a really, really fancy studio with a billion like sub mixes and all that, you would like mix the monitor mix. You would like scoop out a bunch of mid-range basically so that the singer feels like they're just dominating the mix while they're performing. Maybe they're a singer that likes to feel like they're like inside the mix while they're singing, but I could say from experience that's mostly not the case. Singers want to hear themselves and be the star. So you could make a tracking mix where you fully don't expect it to be the final product, like save it in a new session basically, or export the mix and then just track vocals over it, and then bring the vocals back into your actual mix session. And do that so that your vocalist has like a very, very easy performance time. Okay? But yeah, you probably don't want to make like committed decisions that you might have to ultimately undo. So let's take a listen to this track, and it's a demo, so we're just gonna check out general feedback, see if there's something poking out right now as it stands. All right, that's going to be another winner for sure. I just want to thank David for always being willing to share like demos. To share it with the class as it was, because it's always so fun to see these progress over every iteration, and they always turn into just absolute bangers. And I can tell it's got like that classic vault, like battlefield, or battle feel in my chest with the percussion and everything. It sounds ready to be like that super tight thing. Uh, so I'm really excited to see what happens once a vocalist jumps on this. This is once again just like a really well composed, dynamic, interesting electronic track. Takes me places. I have one thing that I want to be very careful of, like obviously rough mix and all that. There's a moment you're really leaning on this piano, okay? The keys, and it's a great funky line. There's a moment where you're filter sweeping the keys, and then you just have that snap sample. And what's going to happen in the final is if you've just got that filtered keys and that snap happening, at that moment, that snap is going to so super dominate the upper mids and like everything that it's going to push on annoying once we get it, like once everything is all in its place and uh and everything's limited and compressed and everything. Like I am worried. I'm concerned for the future of that moment. Like it's such a cool idea to have that filtering piano and that really broken down percussion. What I would consider is a tertiary element to kind of bridge the gap between the keys and the snap. It could be something as simple as like a granulated reverb that's pinging off of the piano, um, but something to like we're creating a wider and wider disparity between that snaps, like upper mids and high end, and that piano as it gets filtered down. But we're gonna get left with just like a dominated sonic field, and it could push on unpleasant if there's just a buffer in between that is kind of like a ghostly invisible thing, so that we still get the dynamic effect of filtering down the keys, so we're going to feel like we're going down into the sonic spectrum, but just something to kind of hold as a canvas might be advisable. And that might also be advisable on just the mix as a whole. And generally speaking, I think you do stuff like this, but make sure that that's kept in mind. Or, I mean, maybe the vocal's going to go there, and then, everything that I just said is completely and totally irrelevant. So, definitely just make sure that you have kind of at least a ghost holder in that area. And then that way, when you push things like up to the top and down to the bottom, it'll actually be more dynamic and more noticed. It's kind of like just a cushion in between. Great stuff. Thank you for sharing the demo. Okay. So we have done Ivxy, Vault. We're going to go on to Elias and then DR. And so Elias and then DR. If you're in the chat and you sent me something and you want me to get to it while you're live, just shout yourself out in the chat and I'll put you in the queue. And if not, we're going to do Elias and then DR and then stuff that got sent in throughout the day. But yeah, cool. So Vault is already on the same page, playing around with a really long reverb. Maybe not long reverb, maybe something a little bit tighter, and like even like like a dotted eighth delay going in. So it's just like, so rhythmic delay into like a medium plate. And it'll kind of spring, it'll spring off from there. That might be the move, and it could kind of jump off of the keys. That's what I would think. Of course, I'm always thinking about like big, wide rock guitars. So see if that does something for you. Just something, but maybe it's all about those vocals. You could take like take the vocals from somewhere else in the piece and chop them up and do some big old cool chops. Might be the move. All right, Elias, let me find your track and we will get into it. Okay. So produced for two friends. You mixed it. You're working on a budget with very minimal gear. We have all been there. So let's see what is happening and what we can do in the mix. Okay, let's gonna kind of volume match it to everyone else, and let's take a listen.
Empty when I lay. That's okay, I'm on my own. I'm dead inside. You ripped my heart open wide. Why did you leave me here alone? Now I'm stuck in my panic zone. I'm dead inside. You ripped my heart open wide. Why did you leave me here alone? Now I'm stuck in my panic zone.
Yeah, I'm dead. Sorry, little baby. I can't go outside cause I've gone a little crazy. I just did another line, I'm screwing up my head. Feeling dead like the faces on my motherfucking bread. Cause I'm dead inside. I cannot close my eyes. You got me losing all my sleep. Watch me sit and count these sheep.
I'm dead inside. You ripped my heart open wide. Why did you leave me here alone? Now I'm stuck in my panic zone. I'm dead inside. You ripped my heart open wide. Why did you leave me here alone? Now I'm stuck in my panic zone.
cool. So, Elias, I think that this track has a lot of potential. I am really listening to a lot of stuff like this from the day to day. Like a lot. This is uh this is something that comes across my desk a lot. So, uh, I think that this is like really nice. Like within this world, that guitar sample is really pretty, and this has a lot going for it. Let's uh, and also, like, I know you probably just strapped like like kind of like a fake master limiter on this, but you were really conservative with loudness and kind of hit like the perfect target. So, great job on that. I want to get into some nitty gritty. So I've got a frequency analyzer pulled up, and we're just gonna go from bottom to top and just kind of address what's happening. So I'm going to use a visual aid to kind of show what's happening. So you've got an 808 that's living from 30 to like 55. And that's like where you're pinning like a lot. You're kind of depending on it to drive the low end of your track. And I would be a little more conservative here. So what's happening is I'm imagining that within your listening environment, and I'm just going to pull up chat real quick on another screen. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not missing stuff. So, okay, we're going to work from here. So 30 to 60. I'm imagining that within your space, so you're depending on this low 808 to be the driving force of the low end. But the problem is that you don't want to depend on 30 to 60 as the fundamental driving like feel of your track, because the fact of the matter is that like consumer speakers are just not going to play it back. And I mean, it's probably even within your listening environment, your monitoring is probably not accurately reproducing this region. So what you've done is you've already compensated and just gone super hot from 30 to 60, and then that's going to dominate the headroom of your mix, and it's going to influence all of your decisions with just like this eaten up space. So basically, I would pull those 808s back like 3 to 6 dB, just like full up, because they are not going to help you if they're pushed up to the max. So then you're going to have to make decisions on your mix, like, oh, well, I got rid of those 808s are no longer just like blowing up every single speaker that they touch, and now I feel like my low end is weak, which is probably going to be how you feel. So it's like we got to beef up the low end in other places. So like within the world of like trap, which definitely does like kind of a triple layered low end approach, like 808s on the very bottom, kick in the middle, and then bass above the kick. That is a common that's a common thing that you see, but you have to have those elements in perfect balance for it to work. So generally speaking, if we have 808s below the kick, then we want it to be like, we want our 808s to be like maybe a little under the kick, and then the kick is going to be like a little pokey at 60. That like 60 to 70 range, we're going to be able to feel that more universally, and then the 808s ride against it, and then the bass is going to live in that like 100 to 200 region, like maybe with a little bit of kick. which you're deficient in on this mix. Because you've devoted so much low end to those 808s from 30 to 60, we're pulling power away from other places, and it could just get spread from 100 to 200, which is going to make your mix feel punchy and full. So we need to more carefully designate these low end elements. They're a little bit ill defined. Personally, I like generally speaking, I put like the kick on the bottom. Once again, I'm a rock guy, but this happens more than you would expect in some like trap mixes. Kick on the bottom, kick provides the foundation, and then the 808's right on top of that. But sub bass, kick, and bass is very normal, but we need to have presence in that 100 to 200 region. Like DR said, less dB, more saturation. Yeah, we could saturate specifically in that 100 to 200. 700 hertz is also pretty useful, but that's going to be a whole other conversation when we get there. So I really like using a Pultec style EQ to do that because you can drive it and it offers like a degree of saturation while also harnessing the spectrum. So you could use like a Fairchild style compressor to drive it, or you could just use a saturation plugin or a tape plugin, but focus more energy in that 100 to 200 and strip stuff away from 30 to 60, or take those 808s. If you want the 808s to be the driving factor of your mix, what you got to do is pull them down from 30 to 60 and take those 808s and give them excitement with like a Pultec or a saturator or a tape plugin, et cetera, in 100 to 200, and then maybe a little bump at 700. So what's next is that mid-range. So you have a pretty classic fight for mid-range happening right now. You've got a guitar sample that is driving and looping throughout the track, and it's also very vocal heavy. These are both occupying the entirety of the mid-range, and they are there's a degree of masking and fighting happening there. So, and you asked in the chat, how do I make my voice sound less nasally? Well, what you've done is either unconsciously or on purpose is you've really cranked that vocal in the like 1 to 2K region to make it compete with the guitar loop, and that's going to make it nasally. Like, just right there is kind of the answer. We need presence from 1 to 2K. Absolutely. If a mix is deficient in 1 to 2K, it sounds weak, it sounds hollow, it doesn't sound exciting, etc., etc., etc. When we push too much in 1 to 2K, it sounds harsh, piercing, nasally, etc., etc., etc. So what I would do is probably do an automated EQ on that guitar loop, and whenever the vocal is there, dip 3 to 4 dB from 1 to 2K. Get rid of whatever boosting you did on that vocal, and the vocal will just ride on top of the guitar. And by getting rid of whatever sort of boosting that happened from 1 to 2K in your voice, it's going to sound a little bit fuller. That would be my move. 500 to 1K is also a little bit crowded on this mix, so consider the exact same thing. Consider getting a little bit cutty, like right around 700, and then letting the saturation from the 808s live around there. That could be useful. So that's what I'm thinking. You could set up like a ridiculous like side chain multi-band, like the guitar ducks the voice and the voice ducks the guitar and the 808s do all that, and you can have all that chain. But I think that this is a simple enough arrangement that you could basically just automate the points and go like, now the guitar gets the mid-range and now the voice gets the mid-range. So that, and then it's really nice up top. It's really clean and shiny. I would consider making the vocal a little more exciting with like some automated delay throws, some reverb throws, some stuff that, because this is like within genre, like a lot of stuff is in this style. It's very, very like looped and repetitive, and that's how the style is. But when you listen to like a really masterful track within this style, you hear like subtle changes happening in the background with like reverbs and delays and stuff. So get a little more liberal with your effects, and having them cut in and out and introduce new textures throughout the piece. And that's what's going to make it go from like sounding like it was recorded in a garage and more like something that would be like at the top of this genre. And now I'm going to check chat and see what's happening. Okay, so you already pulled down the vocals in that region. Yeah, it could be your mic, and maybe you just need to pull it down more. So if we're fighting like a bad recording, and you don't want to get too, so I mean, if we're just like pulling and pulling and adding, then we're gonna get into like weird artifacts. But pull down a little more, and we could beef up the low mids of that vocal, but be very careful when beefing up the low mids. You're gonna have to get cutty on other stuff, and you know, whenever we move up something down there, we want to spread it out on the other instruments. So be very, very careful while you do it. But kind of the same idea as those 808s, like I would pull away like 3 to 500, 250 to 500. That's where we can get some girth and weight in a part. It's also where we can get muddy and you know, ruin a mix. So be very, very careful. But basically, I would you know, do some cutting in the other instruments, and then take like some sort of analog style EQ and push a little bit of texture on the vocal in that region. So, you know, pull down a little bit on the upper mids and then give it a little bit of love, or do like parallel compression with like a distressor type compressor. That is a pretty good way to bring some body into the vocal. And yeah, that's basically kind of my whole run through on this track. That's how I would approach it. Okay, DR, I'm going to go ahead and get your track into the session. All right, folks. While I am getting this set up, this is a ton of open studio, 6 p.m. Eastern time every night. I might take Christmas off, but from here on out, we're looking at 6 p.m. Eastern. Spread the word. The most of the people that are here came here from a Reddit post, and basically this community has gotten built through word of mouth. So I always appreciate it when people spread it around. It, you know, the more tracks I have, the more I can like talk about. So this is awesome. I really appreciate you know, sharing the love. There is a Patreon that exists that's in the link description. And one of the perks is you get a shout out every stream. So I'm just going to throw that up really quick. Thank you to Mason and Tyler. It is very appreciated. And we will get right back to the mix feedback as I load this up. And DR says, I don't have to listen to the whole thing. It repeats. Cool. I will keep that in mind. Find in this. All right, so it's a hip hop instrumental. Recently had it mastered. Don't hold back. Absolutely. All right, here we go. Okay. This is really nice. I mean, this would fit right in with like a lot of beat tape material. It's got a great vibe. It sounds good. It sounds professional. It sounds clean. Um, so I'm very like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like the mastering is good. The like we've got like really controlled levels. It's sitting in a nice dynamic range. It hits a nice like peak value. Um, so this is good. There are a couple of decisions that I would have made along the way that could have like added up to a slightly different result, but I mean, that said, this is getting into like total and complete personal taste at this point. This is very, very good. This is slick. Um, Kind of the same thing. We've got a degree of information getting eaten up in like from like 30 to 40 hertz. And I would address that in the mix stage and just even that out a little bit, because that is it's diminishing returns down there basically. Like the more that we blow up the low end on most playback devices, on most monitors, on most speakers, on most sound systems, like on people's phones, like that's stuff that is just going to take away from our output that isn't going to get played back. So, on a technical level, I like to play really conservatively down there because I'm concerned about getting like a really, really big perceived loudness on a final product. So, that said, if you're intended, like, if you want this to be played on like big systems with huge subs and they can kick out that information and that's what you're going for, then it's great, you know. I'm a little more format agnostic in mind, and I smooth down that low end with the assumption that if someone's like a big speaker head or they have like giant subs at home or it's getting played by a DJ in a club, then in that case you can always dump info into the sub in those situations. Like you have the power to add more low end as a consumer even. But then for the format and delivery of the mix, if you're flat down there, then you can get it as loud as possible for a wider variety of devices. So that's like my number one thing that I would play with existentially on this mix. The other thing is the and we've got like really really nice like sound staging like from the mix and the master here. Like we're very very clearly perceiving like bottom middle top, like that hi-hat is like off in its own world and it's like a very very immersive nice experience. I think that the mids might be getting dominated a little bit by that hat, and I would maybe smooth some stuff out around there just so we have like kind of like a consistent blend. But that said, that's super subjective at this point. So I really love what you've done here. Yeah, solid mix. I yeah, my number one thing is just like that huge like sub bass is awesome. I mean, it's awesome when it's getting played back on a system that has it. It's just that most people don't have those systems, and in the scenarios where there is a giant system available, people are they'll set their own EQ at that point. Even if we're talking about like a home enthusiast who has like a giant system, they also have like a graphic EQ and they generally like set a smiley face. So what we want to acknowledge is that most tracks that come out of like professional studios are flat. Like that's the predominant, like if we look at I mean this is embarrassing, but if we look at like the new Miley Cyrus stuff, okay? Like it's flat. Miley Cyrus, The Weeknd, et cetera, like top 40, which is what I have to acknowledge, like as a mastering engineer, that this is what consumers are getting as the regular thing that plays through their stuff, as lame as it might be. But consumers that care are setting their own EQ on their systems based off of the zeitgeist of sound. And the zeitgeist is flat. Okay, so that's awesome. DR, thanks for coming on, and thank you for sending a track. You can send stuff anytime. That's how it works here. So once again, I'm going to go back to chat. And if you are hopping on, joining, this is a Ton of Open Studio. I'm going to be here nightly at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can send tracks in to atonuvrecords@gmail.com. feel free to spread the word. That's how everyone got here today, and that's how everyone gets here. And I always really appreciate it because we have a good time here. 6 p.m. Eastern. I might take Christmas off, so pop by anytime. Let me see what's left. We've had just a lot of tracks come in today, and that is awesome. If you are in chat and you've sent something and I haven't gotten to it, shout yourself out so that I can get to it while you're still here. And if not, I think we have a track from Kevin and 30 Empire left. So I'll just give this a minute and also just I'll give it a minute. Oh, so DR asked, would you say most of my references are off current top 40 songs? That's a great question. I'd say that my outlook, so it's kind of like I just said, it's like I want to know what is out in the world because that's what's going to determine how most people are expecting things to sound. Like it's kind of like that simple. It's like that if that's what is predominantly happening, like if someone is like fiddled with their car EQ and it's based off of like what's playing like out in the world, it's probably going to be top 40 just by, you know, the law of averages. While also understanding that like genres and conventions also influence a degree of what's happening. Like not everything is based off of the pop world, absolutely. And if someone sends in a reference that is outside of that of those boundaries, then I absolutely honor that. With I generally do a warning of like, this is what's existing in this like subgenre, but in the large world of like playback, this is what we're kind of looking for, and it might you know, it might inhibit playback on someone who's a normie, you know? And that's my concern. And then that said, like in my referencing, I generally do like a rule of like, okay, I'm gonna like listen to something that's like super modern, super top 40, and then I kind of like give my ears a little like warm up. So I'll listen to something like really old, like from the 50s and 60s. I kind of like work my way through the decades as I fire up my system and warm my ears up and just kind of like listen. I listen to a lot of music. And then that said, I can tell you that like uh, James Blake's new album has like it's flat, but it actually has like a whole lot going on from like 200 to 300, and that sounds good. Radiohead's "Hail to the Thief" is like brick flat. LCD Sound System, their last two albums were brick flat, but then the newest one is hyped from 1 to 3K. So there is no such thing as like a good or a bad spectrum, but the law of averages is that it just kind of like just flattens out in the super modern era. Yeah, and that's DR said that he's read that a lot of big name engineers tend to keep their reference tracks current and up to date. Absolutely, it's for that exact reason. Is that if you want to be competitive in the market, you want to deliver stuff that won't sound weird, like within the context. Like they're like we're thinking about like especially like from a mastering standpoint, it's not just you're mastering like based on the past, present, and future. Like, okay, I have to examine a mix and go like, this is all of the stuff that happened during the mixing process. This is all the stuff that I have now, but in the future, it's going to get played on this system and this system and this system and this system, and it's getting played in a market that is like this. So you want to stay up to date, like purely for that reason. Like the most amount of people that a song could possibly reach that is going to get played on the radio, get played on Spotify, get played on like big festival systems, going to get played in the supermarket, going to get played at a movie, in a movie theater, going to get a commercial deal, and it's going to play under a Nike spot. Like, the way that everything churns itself around is you want your track to be going to all of these places, and if it's not consistent with the larger market, it's going to make it harder to break into those avenues because everything is just plug and play at that point. Like, if 99% of the tracks that are coming in to a DJ have a specific frequency response and a curve, and then someone's comes in and it's radically different, it's going to play differently, like through their like broadcast system, and they don't want to like chase they don't want to chase values if like 99% of what they have is like more or less the same. So that's why we stay current. That's why we use like modern references, and so on and so forth. And then that said, like, listen to older stuff too, so that you can like catch some different vibes and catch some different stuff. But always acknowledging what is happening right now is a crucial move to make. Great questions. Chat has been awesome today. This has been super fun. And yeah, like once again, just giving it a minute. If you're here and you've sent something in and you want to let me know that you're here, feel free to say something. But if not, I'm going to get to the next track. All right. Next up is 30 Empire. So let's see what's going on there. Let me see if they dropped any info. They're just looking for feedback. All right. Let's see what's going on.
Breaking windows just for fun. We better burn it down too. Shifting focus all the time, like we're supposed to. Causing pain to those in the way, because it feels right. Focus all your time, and it didn't even matter. Just the way it goes, just the way it goes, just the way it goes, just the way it goes. Reading script all the time, some shit you memorize. Spit it out all on cue. Feel the eyes on you. just the way it goes, just the way it goes, just the way it goes, just the way it goes. We're gonna move on, we're gonna suffer, we're gonna feel right, we're gonna feel right, we're gonna move on, we're gonna move on, we're gonna suffer, we're gonna suffer, we're gonna feel right, we're gonna feel right, we're gonna feel right, we're gonna feel right, just the way it goes, 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 just the way it goes.
Okay. So just a few things to scooch around here. First off, I am really into like goth bummer rock. That is like when I'm doing live sound, I check every single system with the Cure's Disintegration. That is just like my go-to vibe. So I see a lot of potential in this track. Here is the biggest issue on this track is that everything is scooped out from 1 to 3K. And that is just basically gonna like ruin the mix. It's creating like some issues where like that snare is I think that it is a cool sample, like it's got a lot of stuff to like, but it is just dominating the mix. And without it being like put in place, it is just gonna not work. So I want to get more mids on the vocal, more mids on the guitar, more mids on the bass. Just like everything needs to get lifted up from like 700 to 3K. Everything but the snare. So that is where I would start, and that is most of what I'm concerned about. So mids is the name of the game here. Low end also needs to get cleaned up. So basically the bass is just hanging out down in the dumps, not getting it's not going to do its job down there, especially within like a rock format, drums, guitar, bass, vocals. You've just basically got this like gloopy like blump of a bass just constantly living at 60 hertz, which that's where your kick could go and like drive the track. So you gotta like get way more cutty with the bass from like 80 on down, and then beef the bass up from 100 to 200. I mean, this is just like a classic move, and it's just an easy, quick fix. And, you know, it's just like what I do all day. I'm like, oh, bass 100 to 200, blow it up with a Pultec, call it a day. Run it into a Fairchild, give it a little bit of spice that way. So, yeah, like 100 to 200, 700 if you want it to really translate on consumer speakers. and also fill out that mid range. So move the bass from way, way, way down here, get it into here with a little bit of excitement in the middle, and then you got a nice bass tone. And then like deal with the kick in the same way. Give the kick like some love and some saturation down at 60, and then give it some top, like a little bit of beater sound. Maybe you need to layer in a beater sample. That might be better than just boosting 8K on that kick. So that's like the Chris Lord Algae move. And so throw some top at that kick, either by like bringing it out a little bit, or layer on a beater sample so that we get a little bit of love there. That's also going to help it interact better with the snare. So low end, clean it up, move it around, saturate the bass, and then mid-range on guitar and vocals, get them to sit nice from 1 to 3K. If it's like my concern with this track, if it's that scoopy in that region, I am concerned that you might be working in like a reflective environment, because that's like pretty indicative of that more often than not. Like you've got like reflections that are making it seem like 1 to 3K is really, really bright and annoying and piercing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're just instinctually cutting down there because that's what your room is demanding. So look into setting up a reflection-free zone between your speakers and your ears. Consider Sonar Works. It's a pretty good tool, and then move from there. Like that might be a systemic issue that we're dealing with because it's just really, really, really scoopy there. I think it's a cool song. I think it's exactly literally up my alley. I would love to hear it get some life in it, and then after we start to get like detail and basically once we start to get detail out of it, then we can talk about like cool reverbs and ways to make it sound, a little bit bigger and give it some flavor and all that. But right now we just got to deal with like core issues on this track. All right. Thanks for sending that in. It was great to hear. So, last up we have a track from Kevin, and they want this played muted, which is always cool. If you have something and it's rough, or you're about to release it and you don't want it to get leaked, or for whatever reason you don't want this played on stream, or also if you're using like copyrighted samples and stuff, please let me know so that I don't play something that gets me clapped. So if that's ever the case, just write it in your email. I'll play it muted on the stream. I'll listen to it in here, and then you can still get detailed feedback. So we're going to go ahead and go to Kevin's track. And let me get this all lined up. All right. I love the vibe, and it sounds really good. It is, right up that lo-fi. Uh, it fits in genre-wise. Uh, just a couple of things that I would concentrate on to put this in place. Basically, you've got a giant hole from 1 to 2K, and that could easily be occupied by that lead whirly line, and you could call it a day. That's uh, that's where I would kind of start and end with fixing this up. It's just the lead never feels like a lead, and then there also happens to be a giant hole in your mix where it could go live, and then it would clear up. It's probably like a little bit muddy from 200 to 400. You could just like scoop that out a little bit, move it into 1 to 2K, and then you've got like a full mix. Now, it's also a little bit dead from 4K and above. We could call that artful and lo-fi, but I would probably experiment with bringing just like a nice little bit of sparkle in. Nothing crazy, like maybe 2 dB uh, from 4K on up. And that's what I would prescribe for this mix. I think it's very cool, and mostly I would just want to start with getting that lead to sit in a better place in the mix, and then evaluate things from there and see what we're working with from that point on. All right, we did a lot of stuff today, so that was awesome. Please, spread the word. It's always super helpful when someone goes and, tells people about it. It's better than when I do it. This is, a nightly resource to get your mixes looked at. We have fun. It's a good time. I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes. We've gotten through everything. If anyone happens to have something that they want to get listened to while I'm here, then I'll be here for a couple of minutes. And if not, we'll be back at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Oh, okay. I got something from Daniel. Let's take a listen. Otherwise known as Piano Toaster. Um, they just started doing music production 4 months ago. Yeah, I mean, 4 months ago was a great time for learning some new stuff. So I understand where you're at. Um, let's take a listen to this. I'm just gonna get this loaded up. Are you still in chat, Daniel? If not, I can do this tomorrow. But if you're here, let's take a listen. Okay, cool. Let's get this loaded in. All right, very cool. Very chill, very nice to kind of float away to. Very cool musical stuff. As far as beefing up this mix, what I would do, I'm just gonna pull this up. Now, I've mentioned it on stream before. Basically, my methodology is to take a big old listen to a track, evaluate it, and then use tools and analyzers to confirm my suspicions. And basically, this is once again confirmed suspicion. It's really heavy from 1K on down to 60, and then we've got like a big old we drop off a cliff at 1K. So it feels like I understand that we're going for like a degree of warmth on this, but this is also going to translate to cramped and muddy on like playback on a lot of systems and like at higher volumes. So I would rebalance this spectrum in a couple of places. I mean, basically all of your melody stuff, the piano, and even when those like chimes, like the big bright stuff comes in at the end of the track, it's still just living below 1K, and that's an opportunity where it could like open up the top end a little bit. We're just never reaching for anything above 1K. So we're really cramped from 100 to 1K, and then we have a huge cliff at 8K. So that's where we could like throw some air at like the percussion, and that would just fill everything out really nicely. This is an MP3, so we're not going to have anything above 16K reliably, but I can also see that we're just like on a downward trend at 8. So lift up, introduce some air and some sparkle into the percussion, probably the piano too, and then just kind of cut everyone around in the low mids and the mids. And then if what's going to happen is you're going to get cutty from 100 to 1K, and then you're probably not going to like where things are landing because you've kind of built your mix into this little tiny box. So all of your decisions are like within this box. So what you're going to need to do is pull everyone back and then reevaluate the mix and then kind of rebalance it from there. That's going to be your plan of attack on this. Okay, I just read chat. So you didn't EQ anything on the drums and percussion. So yeah, I mean that's probably a good place to start. Now I like having mid range on drums. I think that is really important, especially for like a natural like drum sound for something like jazzy. It's really important to have like the wood of the drums lives at like 500 to 700. So like a lot of like modern rock production gets pretty scoopy there. But when we want to like get like that warm, classic, great like live drum sound, I introduce a fair degree, especially through like room mics, in that mid range. It makes it harder to do a big mix because then we're pushing something that is very, percussion is every single 16th note sometimes. So when we push that range and it's very present, it makes mixing around it a little bit trickier. Like the reason that we have scoopy drums is because it's easier to get a big mix without them living there. But I would say that the payoff of doing it, if you can get it and you can get it like huge, like around that, then you just have like really good sounding drums, which I think is worth it if we can do it. So, but that said, you've got a lot of cramping in there. So I would brighten those drums up, give them air and lift above 8K, and also look into cutting them in that mid range because you just have too much happening there. And that might be what gets compromised because you're gonna just like cut everyone there and see what you're left with, and you're gonna have to pick somebody to live there. Right now, it's like everyone's trying to live in a single bedroom apartment, and it's not working on the mix. Uh, but really, really great track. I'll probably like pop this on every now and then. It's like exactly what I like musically. I'm living in that like Twin Peaks world. I just want to get, I want it to be less cramped. Uh, that's that is the be all end all on this mix. Yep. And then I'm reading chat, and just so we all know, you said, yeah, that's something that I'm finding tricky on mixes, and absolutely. And you've only been doing this for 4 months, so like, hats off. This is not a bad mix. You're at a very normal place. This is what's tricky about mixing, is finding who lives where. And you're exactly where you should be at that point. But as far as like a top down look at it, uh that's where you're at. It's just there's just too much happening there. That's really, really normal. I would say that everyone's first few mixes looks exactly like this. So so you just have to just get cutty in there. Just cut, see what it sounds like. Adjust your ears to it. Get your ears to like whatever mixing environment you're in can technically become a successful mixing environment if you learn how your environment works. There are things that you can do to make it work better. Of course, acoustic treatment, putting yourself in the right part of the room. I talk about it in every single video. I talked about it earlier in this video, but there are steps to get into a better environment. But then that said, it's also all about learning the environment that you're in. So it's as simple as for a amount of time, I recommend to like my private students that don't listen to music anywhere but your mix room. Don't listen in your car. Don't like other people's music, like professional music. Don't listen in your car. Don't listen on your phone. Don't listen on the headphones that you like. Like you have to do like a starvation diet and only listen in your mix environment, whatever it may be. Like just train your ears on one set of variables. And then you eventually you could go and listen to music other places. But as far as training your ears while you're learning how to mix, you want to just restrict yourself to one system and learn that system. And then you're going to have a much easier time matching up to variables if you know what your room is like, if you know what your system is like. If you're constantly exposing your brain to different variables, there's going to be a degree of uncertainty. Now, eventually, like after you learn your system, it's good to know what other things sound like, and then you can apply a more global perspective. But as far as training your ear while you're learning, restrict yourself. Do ear training exercises. There's a bunch of free ones. You can give Sound Gym a little bit of money, and you'll get like great daily training. And yeah, if you know your room, even if it's not a perfect room, you can get pretty good results. Yep. And chat, we're on a delay. Yeah, so that you can get consistency. That is exactly 100% right. So, uh, like you can listen to a million references, but if you're not listening to the references in the same place that you're mixing, then you're not really getting that ear development that you need. And it's like the same thing. If I go into a different room than I've mixed in a while, I want to just play a bunch of stuff that I know in and out, like through the system, so that I can get a feel for the room. And then, I mean, generally speaking, I'm doing 95% of what I do in the same room for exactly that reason. I don't want to change a bunch of stuff. And it's like, I know I don't have to like check a bunch of graphs or meters like while I'm in the middle of mixing, because I know what it's supposed to sound like, at the end of the day, and I can just trust myself at that point. But that said, you just started 4 months ago, so you're doing amazing. Uh, get a little more disciplined in your approach, and you're going to be really, really good at this. All right, Daniel, if you have any specific questions about, because I know you're totally fresh, feel free to ask in chat. And if anyone else is watching, this is a Ton of Open Studio. I'm here at 6 p.m. Eastern every night. I was doing this a few months back, and then I had some really terrible internet outage issues. But those are all sorted, and I am back on the stream. So 6 p.m. Eastern, you can send tracks to atonuvrecords@gmail.com. People send things throughout the day. I get them loaded up, and then we go through them on stream at the beginning. And then at the end of stream, I just kind of hang around for a little bit, see if anyone straggles in or has any questions, and then we move from there. And so we're getting into the straggle phase of the stream. Cool. Yeah, so Daniel's been a jazz musician for a while, and it's production and mixing that's difficult. And yeah, I can feel that. I can totally tell that you know what you're doing. The musicality here is incredible. That's why I care about it. It sounds, I mean, the quality is there. It's just about like digging it out in the mixing stage. Yes. So you've heard that a lot of people don't rely on visual EQ but use ears. Absolutely true. That's like that is what we are aiming for as we train our ears in our environment. And then you asked, but what if my ears can't hear in the sub range, but rather your headphones? Yeah, absolutely. This is a common problem. So if you are super serious about mixing, you would want to set up a dedicated mixing environment, which runs a fair degree of cache. I mean, I have a system that is reasonable. I mean, we're talking about studio monitors, a reflection-free zone that's like done with some absorption, and that's between the speakers in your ears. And then depending on your monitors, you might need a sub, and then you would hear sub range. And then you would get bass trapping for the back of the room. And then you would call your room a day. This is about the third time that I've done the room treatment spiel, so you can see a further explanation earlier on in the video. Now, if all you have is headphones, that doesn't mean that it's impossible to get this dialed in. Once again, it would come down to doing dedicated listening on those headphones consistently, and not changing up systems, and just training on those headphones. Doing ear training within that system with something like Sound Gym. You could also see if SonarWorks has the profile for the headphones that you're using. That does make those headphones a bit more accurate. And SonarWorks Headphones Edition is pretty reasonably priced. And that would be like your kind of like a budget option for getting a better listening environment. And that said, the subs aren't the problem. Like, the good news is, like, there's all of that. Like, oh, what if I can't hear subs? The good news is that your sub is totally reasonable. There's nothing super wrong happening there, especially if you're gonna do jazz. Like, if you're a jazz musician and you want to record jazz, you're just not gonna run into a lot of issues down there. So that is that's just not going to be a huge problem. Your huge problem is you want everyone to live in the mid-range because you're a musician. And that's the thing. I grew up playing classical violin. I know a bunch of jazz people. I've played in like bluegrass bands and country bands and jazz stuff and orchestras. So I'm super familiar with like very pure music, and it's like everyone in that world wants like a really crowded mid-range because that's kind of like how instruments naturally mix themselves in a room, and it's what we're accustomed to listening to. But the studio and like speaker playback is different than instruments in a room, and that's like there's a degree of acceptance that has to happen, that we're doing something a little bit outside of realistic to get a nice capture. So headphones don't accurately reproduce sub. Absolutely 100% the case. That's the bad news. The good news is, if this is what you're going to be doing, you're not going to run into too many problems there. You're going to run into problems fighting your desire to cram your mid-range. So that's what's up there. Now, if you're in a position where you can't accurately monitor, you can use some graphs to help you make decisions. The Waves Paz Analyzer is really good. It's consistent and it's cheap. I think it's $30. And that's just going to tell you what's going on. And, shoot for a basically a flat response with a bump in the mids. That's going to be kind of your and so you can use Paz and you could use your ears and just listen to a bunch of references. Like, go through, like, if you want to recreate recordings that you like, you can go listen to them in your environment, run them through Paz, and look at what they look like. Okay, and like my best guess is a lot of the stuff that you're gonna listen to is gonna look pretty flat with a bump in the mids. That's like kind of like your classic sound. And then like modern stuff is kind of like smiley facey a little bit or dead flat. But you could simultaneously train your ears, train them in the environment, try out Sound Gym, try out a different pair of headphones, and then you could use something like the Paz Analyzer to get a sense of what other like professional tracks look like, in addition to doing ear training. Don't ever just rely on a graph, but you can lean on one. Okay, Hunter, if you're in chat, I just got an email from you a few minutes ago. So, Hunter, you sent something, and I'm down to take a look. If you could send me a bounce of what you're doing. I could open up this SoundCloud link, but I can't play it back on stream because of the loop back system that I have. Or if you don't want me to listen to it on stream, that's cool. But also if you have a wave, then I can pop it into my meters and stuff and like look at it. So if you're here, let me know. And also, I would prefer a mix sent to me if you're here. And Daniel, you're welcome. I am happy to do the feedback, and I appreciate you sending stuff while you're working on it. That's awesome. Okay. So Hunter, you're not at the computer. I could totally take a listen, and it'll just play off stream, for a bit, and that's totally cool. I can see what's going on, with that. So yeah, I'm gonna listen to Hunter's track, and while I'm listening, if anyone is wondering what's going on, this is a ton of open studio. I'm Scott Murphy. I'm a mastering engineer that also does a bit of mixing. And I'm here nightly at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can send tracks to atonuvrecords@gmail.com. That link is in the description. And you can send it in, get some top-down mix feedback, and I will be on stream while people are still sending tracks in tonight. Yeah, if you've got something, just let me know. If you're watching and lurking and you have an audio question, feel free to ask in chat. And just let everyone know while I get Hunter's track ready. Let's see what it's like. Okay, Hunter, there's a lot of stuff to like here. So, first off, so in your email, you pointed out you started recording as a quarantine hobby, as I'm sure many people have, and so you're just starting out, and you want to actually get better, but you're having fun, and so on and so forth. So, what you have so far. First off, I'm very impressed with your drum capture. That sounds nice. Like you've got like a really, really nice bass to work with. with that drum track. That sounds good, and it's nice and present. I like how your snare sounds. I'm just like I'm happy with what you've got going on there. Um, there is a degree of fighting with kick and bass, and once again, like classic like rock arrangement stuff. Um, get cutty with your bass below 80 hertz and let your bass live from 100 to 200, and then you've got nice bass. With the ability on this track, it's like you've got like a really nice present, like kind of like picky bass feel. So you probably don't need to excite it at 700 hertz. But if you're ever finding that your bass isn't playing out nicely on like the car stereo or consumer speakers, that's where you want to focus some energy on that bass. That's like the harmonic spectrum of the bass, and you can saturate at 700. I feel like the mix is a little bit scoopy in the upper mids, and that we could probably get more definition there. But where we have like an actual problem on this track is it sounds like your guitar was blowing up. It's clipping somewhere, and it's not like pleasant clipping. It's just like bad clipping. So that right there is like the error on the track that is that's making it. It's also making it hard to make mixed decisions because like it's got like it's got a pretty nasty distortion, and that's going to make it hard to make decisions about your upper mids, because if you're pushing it in the upper mids, it's going to sound really bad. So it sounds like you're using a DI on the acoustic, or it's like blowing up a mic, which would be weirder. But just take a look at your gain and make sure you're not clipping on your way in. And Guinness is saying hi again. So address that distortion issue. Now, that said, if it's not like an input blow up and it's like you're using a distortion plugin, mix it down. It's too much if that's the case. If this is on purpose, it's too much. And then okay, so I'm kind of reading chat as we go. You asked what's good clipping. Good clipping would come from definitely not like on your interface. Don't clip your interface. I guarantee, like, the only interface that you can clip is like a mastering converter that costs $5,000, and then even then it's like questionable as to if it's good clipping. Now, if you have like an analog desk and you're clipping the input there, maybe that's cool. And then it's clipping on the analog desk, and then it's going into the interface, but it's not clipping there. Then it's like usable, but also so I guess like I'm gonna ask, how did you get this clipping on this track? Because whatever means it was here, no good. And I would start with that. So however we arranged that, if we want to get like a crunchy guitar tone, and all that, like this wouldn't be the way to go about it. How I would go about it is like if you have like a dedicated analog thing beforehand, but then even then, be very careful with how hard you push it. And then if you're trying to do it with software, you're going to want to use some sort of analog emulated device, like a tape plug-in. Softtube has a free one that's pretty good. And even then, you got to be careful. You got to drive it just the right amount. As of right now, we're dealing with like an unpleasant clipping, and it's also too much of it, and it's making the mix kind of collapse around itself. And Rain Music just asked, how do you submit a track for feedback? You can email atonuvrecords@gmail.com, which is in the description, and just send a mix down. Something lossless like a wave is preferred, but you can send an MP3. And yeah, you could go ahead and send that. All right, so Hunter, like basically, we just have to figure out what's up with this guitar, and then if you're using a DI, you would want to like use some sort of impulse response, and that's going to depend on what DAW you're using. Like like most DAWs have some sort of inbuilt impulse response, like cabinet simulator or whatever, and that's just a really easy way to make your guitars sound. Uh, okay, so you recorded an acoustic electric, so you recorded the actual acoustic and direct input. Okay, so you're blending the two together. So what you're going to want to do is let me turn on. First off, if you've got them in 2 tracks, okay. So if you've got 2 tracks, first off, what I'm going to assume is that the DI is distorting. So if you wanted to blend in that distortion, I would turn the DI down. What you're also going to want to make sure is on your editor, you're going to want to zoom in like this and like line up. So this is phase alignment, okay? This is like the most important and most boring part of music production, when you are combining the same sound from 2 different sources. For it to sound really full and natural, you need to make sure that you're phase correlated. So you just line the 2 tracks up to each other, zoom in all the way, and then line up so that the shapes are roughly the same. The more phase correlation that you have, the better they play together. A degree of out of phaseness also increases like width and dimension, but you want to start like really, 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 really tight. So make sure that you're correlated. And then this distortion issue, I'm assuming that something is just getting overdriven somewhere in the chain. And I would move from there. So try out different ways of achieving distortion on that guitar. So if it's clipping the interface and that's how it's happening, don't do that. Use some sort of analog plugin. Maybe it's maybe a tape, maybe an amp sim, or a Fairchild type compressor, like a Vibey compressor that you can push the input on. All of those are going to yield better results. And I'm just going to be a stickler on this guitar thing because like I'm really impressed with those drums. I think that everything else sounds like really, really nice and clean, but that doesn't. And that's going to hamper your entire mix. And then once you address that issue, you're going to be able to push a more polished professional mix. Even though, I mean, I know it's in that like punk vein, but like everything else is like in that like pleasant kind of grit. And then that's just like pushing into an unpleasant zone. So awesome stuff, Hunter. Feel free to send stuff anytime. I'm here at 6 p.m. Eastern nightly. Might take Christmas off. But we'll be here until then. And okay, Rain is sending something. I've just gotten a huge amount of tracks today. This is definitely the most that I've done in a day. So, if you're watching and wondering what's going on, this is a ton of open studio. You can send tracks in for feedback and get like pushback on your mix. And yeah, that's it. This has been awesome. This is just like a marathon of audio engineering. And yeah, feel free to. So Rain is sending something in. We're gonna take a listen to that, and then if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask in chat, and I'll get to you. Oh, okay. And I also have. I'm simulcasting on YouTube and Twitch, and I just had the you died just sent a sup dude. What's up? If you have any questions about music production, you can feel free to ask. I'm trying to watch two chats at the same time. So, okay, we've got Rain's track. Okay, you died. If you want to send me a track, you can send it to atonuvrecords@gmail.com. I'll just write that in chat. We're on a little bit of a delay. Yeah, we'll take a look at Rain's track, and then we can get to you. Let me download this track and then move from there. All right, and Rain says this is your first track, but you're looking to improve. General feedback, anything is all good. I see that you've got 2 masters in this folder. Is there one that you would like me to listen to more than the other? And also, I have been streaming for like 3 hours now, and I need to get a glass of water, and my dogs need attention for 1 second. So I'm going to take like a 3-minute break, and then we'll get back. So I'm going to put up a little bit of a little hold sign, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'll see everyone in a minute. Okay. Beverage for me. A little bit of dog time. They're happier. Let's get into tracks. So, okay. So you prefer Master 1, but you're wondering which one is best. Fair. And then we have a track from You Died. I'll get to that after Rain. Now, You Died, you sent a SoundCloud link, and just so you know, with like how I've got loopback set up, I won't be able to listen to that through the stream. If you've got a file that you could send, like a WAV would be preferable, and MP3 would work. Then I can play it on stream. I can also load it up and take like a deeper dive into the audio. But if not, that's totally cool. I can totally get stuff off of, just listening to it. So let's get this track dialed in from Rain. Okay, so since I have two masters here, I'm gonna kind of like hop in between them, so we're not gonna get the like full experience of the track. But yeah, let's see what's going on here. Yeah, I would prefer wave. Uh, few things here. So, just as far as like a quick uh A B, Master 1 is better than Master 2. Okay? Uh so as far as the track, really nice and expansive, like a nice excited upper mid range. It's all crystal clear. It's like I think that the folder is called like Psytrance, Psymax. Yeah, so it's totally within that genre. It's doing what it's supposed to do. And it's got like some exciting like bass kick rhythms happening. This is a cool track. Okay, let's see. So vocals in the middle. Let's.
What's within? Show me. Let me. Let me.
The vocals are nice. They're very forward. I am wondering if they might be a little bit too uh forward for being in the middle of the track. They might be able to sit in the mix a little bit more. It also sounds a bit hyped from like 3 to 5K. And that could get clamped with it does that like kind of like very artificial breathy thing, which we sometimes it happens from like a lot of parallel compression or just general compression or like a really hyped EQ. And that said, like especially the parallel compressor thing, we're gonna push that vocal tone like in a really really dense mix. That's where it's gonna like cut through. Like in a rock mix is where I like push that region. Whereas this feels like it's in the sparsest part of the track, so it might just be getting like juiced up for like no reason because it's not competing with anything. Like we would generally go for something this hyped if we're in a very very competitive mix. So, uh let's yeah, I'm thinking like 5K. Let me
Show me. Let me. Let me.
Yeah, it's weird at like 3K. I was like 3 to 5K. It was 3K. That's where it's just got a little bit um it's really pokey there for no reason. It's like that level of push in that region is a thing that we hear on vocals, but we hear it when it's competing in a dense mix. So, uh I think that it is pushed for no reason. Now that said, if the rest of the mix got busier there, then like this would be like a valid thing to do. But I wouldn't necessarily just EQ that vote. It's one thing like, oh, we'll just pop another EQ on after, but it's more like look at what's happened so far and see if there's something that's happening, like if it's pushing a compressor really heavy or like it's already got a hype EQ somewhere. Don't just like keep tacking stuff onto your chain. See if something is happening earlier. Uh, Okay, so that's what's up with the vocal. Now, with the track as itself, so, like I said, this is like sitting in a very, like, it's sitting where it should in the genre. I am uh, concerned about this master in that you are severely constricting your dynamic range. Now, the reason that I would say Master 1 is better than Master 2 is because Master 2 is even more compressed. So, here's what's up. Like, just like with the pure numbers, what we're sitting at is, and it's because we've got we're very smiley faced in the EQ, which is genre appropriate. I think that it is a little overhyped at 60. Like it's like it's pushing a little bit hot, and what that's going to do is that's going to restrict our dynamic range in the first place, like outside of like how hard you're hitting the limiter. It's just like we are maybe losing impact of the overall track for the sake of like diminishing returns down below 100. So what we're looking at is, and let's see, it looks like you died, sent the wrong track. That's totally fine. Go ahead and I'll stay here and you can send something. All right, so this is what we're doing. So this is just good old the Matt dynamic range meter. It's awesome. And what I'm concerned more than anything when I'm mastering is what is up with my dynamic range. Because if we're just pinned on that dynamic range, that's where we're gonna like we can clip. We could be too loud with our average loudness. We could like do all sorts of crazy destructive things. But once the dynamic range starts to just like push and push and push and push and push and push, then we're going to run into physical limitations of playback, speakers and devices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what I tell electronic producers especially all the time, because outside of this, I'm also a live engineer, and I've done like I'm in Detroit, so it's just like techno movement, like electronic music after electronic music after electronic music, big festival stuff. And the people that are like main staging like a lot of stuff understand this concept. And with systems, there is a physical limitation of how restricted the dynamic range can be until you're going to run into like blown up woofers. All right, they're too pinned and they don't have enough flex, and you're gonna like once something is like hyper limited and hyper pushing the dynamic range, if you are a like if you're working front of house for like a big club or a big festival date, and you're at the desk and someone starts playing something, you're trained to watch for pinned dynamic range. And when that happens, we turn your track down because basically the boss or whoever owns this giant ass system doesn't want it to blow up mid festival. Okay, so we are watching for hyper pin dynamic range, and everyone is like producing stuff and they want to be the loudest in the club or the loudest at the fest. And there is a point at which you get diminishing returns on loudness. And this track is pushing that. We're pinning every single time that kick hits. We are absolutely crushing this into a pinned dynamic range state. I would want this to hit the limiter a little bit looser or dial back on that low end a little bit so that we just have a healthy breath to our dynamic state on this track. And it's going to, first off, it's going to sound better. Second off, it's going to play better. And third off, like if you have your track played on a stage, you will be more competitive. Because if you're in a situation where there's a grumpy sound guy like working the desk all night, they aren't gonna pull you down once your track starts playing. So Yeah, so as far as fixing it in the mix, I would pull down like you're a bit heavy from 60 to 100. You could look at some stuff to cut around there. And then as far as fixing it in the master, just like don't hit your limiter as hard. Uh we're so Okay, so we're hitting like RMS 7, which is where like Skrillex is living. But Skrillex has a healthier dynamic range on those really, really pinned tracks. Okay. Uh, so we gotta like, uh, it's that low end is hitting the limiter harder, and that's going to constrict dynamic range more. So if you just pulled back a couple of dB at 60, that is probably going to help. Now, the other thing is that means that there might just be, uh, we might just be hitting too much compression in general. We've got too much limited gain movement happening. That's going to be happening on the kick and the low end as well. So take a look at that, and just loosen up on your compressor a little bit, and it'll open up and it'll breathe a little bit more. Cool. And then Daniel just said that like getting the balance between loud and dynamic is really hard. Yeah, absolutely. There is a sweet spot where you can have a crushingly loud track that still has inner sample dynamics that like it's pumping to big dynamic differences like from moment to moment, and it's still going to feel dynamic to your ears. It's going to sound loud but feel good. And that's like super classy modern mastering. And yeah, Rain, I'm super happy to do it. This is great for a first track. I think that you did a lot of like within genre. I understand why all of these moves are there, but I'm also saying that to be like to rise above the average, because uh, this looks like an average psytrance track, and I don't mean that in any sort of insulting way, because it's like I have been at the fest, and it's just like, there's a dozen people that come on, and they put on stuff like this, and it's great, and people dance, and they love it, and that's the response that you'll get. People dance, and they love it. But what separates the, like, dozen, like, producers and DJs that I absolutely don't remember their name, and they did a good job in the moment. What separates them from the people that are like killing it and doing like main staging and headlining and all of that, they understand this concept, and their tracks are actually less loud than the people that are competing for like opening slots. So if you can get a leg up now and address this issue, you're going to come across as more pro to the people that are like booking stuff. You've got a smart wife. All right. Let's see if other stuff came in. Okay. Um you died. You sent me a bunch of stuff. Is sinking deeper the track? All right, I'm going to load this up. I see that we still have a lot of viewers in here. So this is a ton of Open Studio. I'm going to be doing this at 6 p.m. Eastern nightly. I was doing this stream a few months back, had some internet issues, had to take a pause, and this is my second night back at it, and there's just been so many submissions. It's been really cool. So if you're watching and wonder what's going on, you could send stuff to atonuvrecords@gmail.com, and I'll load it up, take a listen, and give mastering style mix pushback. Just dial things in to be a little bit better. You can ask general audio questions in the chat, and yeah, I mean that's basically it. I've been This is this is hour 3 of just like audio analysis. So I'm up for it, but wow, just a lot of people tonight. So feel free to send stuff to atonuvrecords@gmail.com, and yeah, we'll be here nightly. Feel free, if you've got something that is like a demo or it's on a thing that's about to be released and you don't want a bunch of people to hear it before it's out, just let me know in the email and I can play it muted on stream, and then we can go from there. And yeah, a lot of people came here from like a Reddit post, and if I really appreciate the word of mouth on the stream. That's how it's gotten out. So, post the link, share it around. The more people that we have on here, then the more that we can do. So, I am going to listen to the next track from You Died, and then go from there. Daniel says, to be honest, I still don't understand how to use compression well, LOL. And Daniel just started like 4 months ago because it's quarantine, and, what better thing to do than learn audio production? So it is absolutely okay to not understand compression 4 months into it. Now, what you're going to want to do is... okay, first off, so Rain Music, I've got an Instagram. That's probably the social media that I'm most likely to be on, which is not that likely. There's the YouTube page. If you follow here, then you'll get updates and stuff. But the Instagram is at a ton of mastering, and I'm on there occasionally. So. And there's a website, www.atonuv.com, with more links and stuff. Okay, so compression in a nutshell, which, you're going to want to, watch a million videos and, get into stuff. Compression in a nutshell serves 2 purposes. The first purpose is its dry technical use, which is to restrict the dynamic range of a given source, in which you make the loud parts quieter and the quiet parts louder, thus allowing you to raise the volume of it as a whole and increase its average loudness. So, that is compression. That is what it is. We can control a compressor with how fast it latches on to a source once it crosses the threshold at which it begins compressing, and how long it takes to release. And the release is how we time it to the beat of a song, and it's also how we deliver the flavor of compression, which gets into the second aspect of compression, in which it colors the tone. And in a tonal color compressor, the release is kind of well, how colored is it going to be? Something like a Fairchild or an 1176. This is the second artful use of compression, in which we use the characteristics of the compressor, like its transformers and its circuitry, to introduce a degree of saturation and excitement to our music. Oh, okay. So, and I'm just reading chat out loud because of the weird delay, and we're on a couple of different streaming services. So, uh, you've had trouble with compression because you just throw it on the master, and all of your mixing goes out the window. As of right now, I know that master bus compressor is like, or a mix bus compressor. That's a thing that people throw around, and that's like a term. Uh, just don't do it. It's you don't have to compress your mix bus. It's not a prescribed thing. Sometimes your mastering engineer doesn't use a master compressor. Uh, it is purely a tool that has its use in a given application. Like, as you get more comfortable using compression and using different compressors, then you're going to have better ideas of how to use it as a tool. But as of right now, 4 months into production, my best recommendation is don't. Uh, you need to get more comfortable with using compression on individual tracks and then move on to bus compression. Separate your stuff out. Send your drums to a bus, send your your guitars to a bus, your vocals to a bus, etc., etc., etc. Play around with bus compression there, and then you're going to move on to like mix bus compression. But also keeping in mind that you might literally never actually use mix bus compression. Perfect. That is absolutely thinking like a good engineer. If you don't like what it does, don't do it. And that's it in a nutshell. As far as how to get more comfortable with a compressor, what you're going to want to do is introduce like small bits of compression, like set your ratios low, 2 to 1, 3 to 1 at the max. Like as you learn, set your thresholds pretty conservatively. Set your attack like kind of medium and your release medium quick. This is going to be pretty transparent compression, and it's just going to start giving you that constricted, tight sound without like a risk of overcompression. And then as you get more comfortable with those compressors, then you're going to start to be able to find moments where you're able to introduce heavy compression or aggressive compression to like clamp down on something when like a bad thing happens. Uh, but basically, just start very, very, very conservatively so that you get familiar and comfortable and develop like a muscle memory, which is like a really, really important part of mixing. Is like you have to think about it as like so many of us started like playing an instrument, and we have to think of mixing as developing that same level of just comfortability and muscle memory that we develop on our instrument of choice, where we want to be able to pull up a mix and go in and dial things in like a musical manner because this is music. Mixing is part of the musical process. And part of the musical process is developing a degree of comfortability with just pulling something up and doing a repetitive task and not questioning yourself as you do it. So you have to build up the comfortability and the familiarity with the tools that you're using. So, and just like playing an instrument, we don't pick up something for the first time and just start shredding. We start with scales. So start with the scales of compression and just introduce very, very, very gentle, conservative compression at the beginning of your mixing career. Okay, uh, cool. So let's get back into tracks. So we have something from You Died, and yeah. If anyone has any questions or tracks that they want to send my way, you can send them to atonuvrecords@gmail.com. And yeah, I am just so stoked to be here. This is really fun, y'all. This rules. Okay, that's really really good. I have a few things that I would go into on it. It is. I guess I'm just wondering, would you? Is this the final mix? Is this your master? Uh, what? I mean, where are you feeling like this is in its production stage? That would be like the first question that I have, and then from there we can kind of move forward. All right. And yeah, so we're just on a little delay. So I'm just going to give you a moment to answer like where we're at in production, and then I'm going to be able to dial in some stuff. Like some stuff is like mastering style, and some stuff we could push back on the mix. Okay. So, um it's not the master, but you think the mix is done. You just did a light master for demo purposes. So, here's where we're at. So, I would not want this to be any louder on the final master. Okay, you are, but we're getting into some interesting stuff here. I don't want it to be louder because we're hitting like an average loudness of about -8 RMS. Okay, so that's like a really, really, really like nice sweet spot for electronic music. So you've like hit like a really, really nice average perceived loudness. Um, Frequency spectrum, as far as like the mix, Um, it sounds really good, and that's the thing. Like this is a really really interesting one because it sounds great and it has a ton of dynamic range. Um, it's also really heavy at from like 30 to 60. And it's very rare that you have something that is so controlled and open that's still really heavy in that region. So I think you've done a very, very good job of being very conservative with your compression, especially in the low end. Um, so, like, hats off to you. This is like it shows remarkable restraint. I would, like I've said a million times, I would consider being more conservative in that 30 to 60 range because when we blow up that region, we're restricting our overall like possible loudness and perceived loudness on a track for systems that are not gonna be able to necessarily replicate that region. So but also that said, I'm usually not seeing stuff that's blowing up down there that's still like really, really nice. Uh, now, so I'm like grain of salting that advice. It's like a little bit heavy down there, but you're also not destroying your material with it. So, take that for what it is. Now, here is where we're getting into because you've done such a good job of being like loose and responsible with your material, we're too dynamic. And if you just put this into a mastering session and just went like, oh, okay, I'm just going to clamp down on everything, like even with something gentle like a very mu, um, it's gonna we're gonna lose like that awesome low end detail. Like we want to be like really really careful with how we're gonna squash this because as it stands right now, it's too dynamic, which is a problem that comes up sometimes in mixes. Very rarely is it a problem in electronic music production. This is why we're getting into some weird territory. Your mix is too dynamic, and I don't want to just slap a master bus compressor on it and call it a day. I would want to push back on the mix a little bit. And I'm kind of a broken record at this point because this is like the third time I've mentioned it on stream, and I don't want to be a meme. But have you played with rear bus compression? We'll let the stream delay catch up. Okay, cool. So, very little. That is what you're gonna want to play with on this track because what you can do is uh, route all of your instrument buses and basically compress everything but the low end and the kick and the bass. Uh, and it's going to address this problem. So the way that rear bus works is I'm just gonna kind of like set up a fake um, chain here. Okay, so on your session, you've got like, and hopefully this is kind of how you're setting stuff up. I would imagine that it's at least close because you sound really good. So, you've got your tracks, and then all of your tracks are getting fed to buses, and then those buses are going to your main fader. Uh, and in a rear bus setup, what you're going to do is feed all of your buses to an effects send or an auxiliary send, or if you're using Logic, another bus, but post because Logic just calls everything buses, and Ugh. So, so you've got like everything goes and lives on a bus, and then you take your buses and you send them to an auxiliary send, and then uh, you send your like all your mid-range stuff. So like the instrument samples. In your case, everything but percussion and bass. Sometimes you send bass to rear bus, and sometimes you don't. And we don't want to restrict dynamic range on the low end at all on this track. So this is a case of no bass to the rear bus. Everything else goes and lives down there. And then you're going to slap on a like 1176 style compressor on that bus in dual mono, set it to 20 to 1, or all buttons in, so like 100 to 1, and just blow it up. Like big compression, huge input. It's going to introduce a degree of saturation and distortion. And then you're going to set the time, set the release so that it's pumping like nicely, so that we're not getting artifacts on it. You got to be really exact with that release time. And we're going to look for about 10 dB of gain reduction at its max. And then we blend in that rear bus compression. And what it's going to do is it's going to constrict all of that mid-range stuff and kind of like beef it out and introduce a degree of like perceived loudness and restricted dynamic range and sound really good as it happens. And if you can dial this in, that's going to it's going to leave your low end like really like loose and big and full and fat, but then we're going to crunch down on that crucial bit of stuff that's happening in between that low end, and we're going to restrict the dynamic range a little bit, and then you can run it into a limiter, and it'll be done. Yeah, so if anyone wants to, so rear bus is it's been around for a really long time, but it got popularized by Andrew Sheps, who is uh, he's doing like a lot of like pop and top 40. If you um if you want like a really big deep dive, you can just Google Andrew Sheps rear bus, and there's like 8 hours of him explaining the philosophy behind it. Uh, and you know, he's the master. But I mean, that's it in a nutshell. So if you set up rear bus, it kind of like automatically automates your mix. Like things that you've already brought out are going to hit that compressor harder and then scooch things out of the way while also exciting them. It just does so many of the little micro moves that you would do in a mixing situation, and it just makes them sound like really nice and loose and natural. So that's where we're at. And that's, I think that if you address your mix in that fashion, it's gonna and you know, blend it in. You don't want like too much of it. You just kind of blend it in. You do the old trick where you take that rear bus, you push it into the mix until you hear it, and then you dial it back a couple of clicks. Like any technique like this, like introducing saturation or distortion, that is always the move to go. You want to hear it, but like that point at which you hear it in your mixing environment, it's generally always too much, and just pull it back a couple of clicks, and that's probably going to be where it should be. And yeah, as far as parallel compression versus rear bus, there's like you can introduce parallel compression on like any source, or you can put it directly on a bus. Like parallel compressing a drum bus is very normal. Rear bus is a different way of thinking about it because you're feeding your entire you're feeding entire elements of your mix into like a parallel processing situation, so you have more than the signal itself acting upon itself. It's the entire mix interacting with itself on a really, really, really nasty compression bus. Like in parallel compression schemes, you usually don't go this hot and this deep with compression. On a rear bus thing, it's like it's that heavy hand. And like Daniel, like we were saying about like starting with like light compression to get it. This is that heavy compression. That it's cool to read about it right now, but I wouldn't recommend like slapping it on your mix at this point. Start with that like loose compression on your mixes, and then rear bus is kind of like the granddaddy of compression. All right, y'all. Awesome track. I'm really happy you sent that in. It sounds amazing, and it's just doing something that I haven't heard. It doesn't come across my desk often. Something like that. So very, very cool stuff. And you died. Would you be down for sending something in for tomorrow? I am on like I just hit the 3.5 hour on this, and I'm starting to feel like I might not, knock it out of the park. I'd be happy to take a look at it in the future. Yeah, folks, I just realized my brain is gonna like fall out of my face. So I've never had to do this on the stream so far, but I am absolutely exhausted. So I will be back. This stream is 6 p.m. Eastern every night. I'm probably not gonna do Christmas, but I'm right back into the swing of it. So 6 p.m. Eastern, YouTube and Twitch. And you can send tracks throughout the day to my email, which is atonuvrecords@gmail.com. And then I will get to your track at that night's stream. So thank you, everybody. This was really cool. This is the best night that we've had so far. This is like probably like the 30th time that I've done this all in all, but the last time was kind of back in summer. So this has been awesome. And the Twitch is just a ton of. And yeah, I just started simulcasting it to Twitch. I was doing just YouTube previously in the summer, but I got kind of into like the whole like the way that Twitch is laid out. So doing that as well. Okay, so I am going to sign off. It has been awesome. See you all tomorrow.